Hi, everybody. I'm doing something a little bit different this week. Hopefully, you'll find it compelling. This is a great opportunity for you to use this recording while you're traveling on the bus or you're driving in your car. And the reason I'm doing this is actually because of the ways in which I did the PMI, the Project Management Institute, and Project Management Professional PMP certification. I actually did exactly this. I listened to podcasts while I was doing a very long commute to a job or I was on public transit. And that's how I studied for my PMI PMP certification. And actually, the way that I teach was really informed by that process. I used all kinds of exploits and ways around paying a lot of money to do the certification exam for the PMP. And I wanted specifically to talk about, that process for you. One of the great things about a PMP certification is you can go anywhere in the world with it. I remember looking up stats a couple of years ago and realizing that there were only 2 million PMPs in a population of 8 plus billion people. That's not very many. And the exam itself, the certification exam, is not a very tricky process. The reason I'm highlighting this is part of a process, taking a course like this, that might help you qualify for the PMP exam. You have to have about 40 hours of training with the PMP. Very often, you have an opportunity to talk about your work experience. If you've worked in any kind of workplace, you have managed projects, all things being equal. You could even count personal experiences like planning major events. And you do a process where you basically show that you qualify for the exam. The exam itself is anywhere around $600 Canadian to take. Once you fill out all of those great forms, demonstrating that you've had at least 6 months of project management experience. And again, you can draw upon a really wide breadth of experience to do that. You then can take the exam. And I'll share with you that I basically did this while I was a single mom, working multiple jobs. And I basically listened to audio recordings in my car. I studied at night using the PMBOK, which is that Project Management Book of Knowledge. Sounds very Klingon, PMBOK. And I also found the Rita McNally books. And this was actually a tip I got when I was doing a job interview where an individual had also done his PMP certification exam. And he said the best trick to finishing the exam, which again, for people as accomplished as you guys, you're not going to find very difficult at all. It does require memorizing a few mathematical equations and doing some calculations, but otherwise it's not that difficult an exam. There's a real emphasis on ethics, which you have been exposed to throughout this course, as well as some sample questions that I've given you. And this is just an optional thing. I just wanted to share with you what it takes to get that certification. You want to just simply Google PMI, PMP certification exam, and you'll get lots of really great information. And again, for me, I basically cobbled it together with a used Rita McNally book that I found on Amazon, which was, I think, $35. I took a few PMI certified courses for the PMP to get to that 40 hours of training that was required. And then I paid the fee. And again, it's a little bit more than it was back in 2012 when I did it, but it's around $600, $700 at this point. And I can tell you that working with recruiters, with headhunters, helping other people find jobs, the PMP certification exam completion and having that certificate really does help you in the job hunt. I can also share that I get a headhunter call just about every week simply for my PMP, ironically not for my PhD. So that's a really funny thing that I often tell people. The PMP certification, which cost me, I think, a little less than $1,000 all in. I worked at it here and there over the course of about 8 months and was able to pass the exam with reasonable flying colors. There's one area where I think I got moderate, but the other two were exceeds expectations. So I wanted to just spend a few quick minutes walking you through that process, how I did it. And it's an option for you. It's obviously not part of this course. It is absolutely just an option. And the other really key thing here is the PMBOK is dry. You think the readings that I've assigned you in this course are dry? Check out the PMBOK. You have to purchase it. You have to ask for it to be printed out. You actually get a license for the printout, so you can go to a place like Staples and get a hardcover book if you want, which is what I did. They do give you a bit of a nuisance sometimes to get it printed out. And again, this is just optional, and it's a part of sort of career advice that I'm giving you as part of this course. And again, that PMP certification is a really interesting differentiating value for a lot of folks. It's not a difficult credential to get. Again, it's a lot of, there is some math in there, but there is mostly ethics and scenario-based questions, which again, I've tried to pepper through the lectures I've given you as part of this course. These are real PMI type questions, which always sound a bit trick question-y. And so that's one of the things that I wanted you to understand. And there's also some really, really cool tools. If you decide to become a PMP at some point later in your career, it can really be so helpful, obviously, to get membership with PMI. They often give you some access to sample exams. If you buy a Rita McNally, which I have flagged in previous lectures, on Amazon, she has since passed away, but her work continues with some really, really good books that take you through real life scenarios, makes the abstract concepts of PMI so much better, because there's a lot of storytelling in her books, and it helps you to understand how this applies in the real world and real anecdotes and scenarios from registered PMPs. Super, super good. And then after you get your PMP certification exam, you actually have an opportunity to continue the training. You have to actually, with 20 hours a year of training that you must complete every single year for a total of 60 hours of training in a 3-year period. If you don't do that training or don't keep up with that training, I have to, then you have to basically take the exam again. But they are pretty liberal, pretty easygoing when it comes to deadlines. They will help you with that, so it's not that strictly held. I actually had a situation where something didn't go through. A couple of hours of training was missing in my deadline just a few weeks ago, and I was able to go, hey, I've done it. It just didn't go through, and they were able to keep the PMI PMP certification for me, because they don't strictly adhere to like the absolute deadline. You have to take the exam again. But I do cancel. You don't want that heart-stopping moment. If you do decide to get certified, just keep up with it. Don't be like me. Things have gotten very busy for me over the last couple of weeks, so that was one of the interesting things I discovered. And overall, again, it's lots and lots of scenario-based concepts. You have all worked in various positions of authority. You've had experiences in the real world, and you're going to find that certification process really, really easy. And again, this is completely strictly outside of this course, but this course actually helps you on your journey should you decide to get a certification. There are different levels of certification. You don't necessarily have to go with just the PMP. There's a whole litany of really cool certifications on pmi.org, which is the website for the Project Management Institute, which is the authority for certifications. They run these certification exams. And just anecdotally, when I did my certification exam in Ottawa, I actually had to go to an Oxford student tutoring center, and I had to sit in a very short desk. Fortunately, I'm also very short, and in a very tiny chair, and basically do a computer exam in that location, because they were actually a registered place to take the certification exam, and you have an individual that kind of watches your progress. You're given strictly a pencil and a piece of scrap paper. That's all you can take into the exam. And I think there was a allowance for a calculator, but that's it. And you're basically watched like a hawk the entire time you do the certification exam. It is about 2 hours. It is multiple choice questions, almost entirely, in fact, entirely a multiple choice quiz. And again, it's strictly the sort of ramp up process to the exam that is the onerous part. Qualifying for the exam itself can be a little fiddly, But the exam itself, I didn't find particularly onerous or difficult. I have had colleagues who have not passed that first time, but passed in subsequent tries. And that's an opportunity for you to retake it. They actually do offer you a discount if you need to retake the exam, so you don't have to pay the entire $600, $700 Canadian. The prices do fluctuate. The other thing to keep in mind as well is if you do decide to take that step at a later point in your career, and again, this is strictly optional, is you can, shop through the different certification levels, and maybe, if PMP is not for you, there are other options at a different level, which are a little less onerous in terms of exams. But I can share with you that it is a little bit like, I guess, catnip, or very attractive to employers. Let's just put it that way. And I do hear a lot from recruiters who do like that I do have a certification in PMP. Not everybody has it. And it is a fairly flexible process. Again, there is some payments to be made, of course, but it is a really attractive, hot certification that a lot of people do opt to get because it does differentiate you in the job market. Again, should you ever decide to do this. And this is more just career advice for you outside of this course. I wanted to provide this quick overview to give you an idea of some of the options available to you, because with this particular course, you actually calculating up the hours, it gets you very, very close to that 40-hour requirement for PMP certification. It qualifies you for the exam, for example, and then you simply need to record some of your other work experience as part of that qualification thing. I did actually find that process of qualifying for the exam much, much more difficult than the exam itself. They do want to make sure you have a grounding and a professional and personal background that allows you to take the exam. I really enjoyed it, and I really, really highly, highly recommend, doing a certification like this, because it kind of opens your mind to a lot of options, frameworks, methodologies that really help you in the work world. And I think that is why a lot of employers privilege this exam, privilege this process, because they see that it gives you this incredible structured grounding about how to tackle the kinds of changes that organizations are going through. It is a really, really chaotic world out there, and PMP certifications, the PMI methodology, helps you to sort of give order to that chaos. And as I've shared with you through all of the lecture content that I have provided, I really adore PMI and the PMP. It means a lot to me. And as a philosophy, as a way of working with other people, I have shared with you that throughout my career, since I've gotten the PMP certification, I have kept the code of ethics on my wall. It has helped me so much. I've kept things like diagrams of the triple constraint. And again, this is why employers super privilege the PMP. So again, this is not part of the course. This is more just career advice and counseling, because I do have this extensive background in life sciences and healthcare in Canada. The PMP really helped me to land healthcare roles. I can share that with you right off the bat, because a lot of healthcare organizations really care about best practice methodology, about education, about certification, as you all know. And I, just like you, was doing a postgraduate work for me, getting that PMP certification. And I did so just like you guys are doing, which is why I am so sympathetic to your plight as students. I was a busy working mom with a couple of jobs. I had freelance jobs in the evening, and I was doing full-time work during the day and juggling this as well. And I just found some clever ways to do things like podcasts. I would actually tape record a lot of the information I was finding, and there's great information for PMI, PMP certification online. Most of it is free. The other really pro tip here is, if again you ever decide to do this is optional, outside of this course, LinkedIn through your public library, wherever you reside. Here in Toronto, it's the Toronto Public Library. You can get access to LinkedIn Learning, which gives you access to a lot of the training for PMI right there. It's completely free through your library. So that's another pro tip. I was and have never been a particularly wealthy person. I'm not at all, actually. And so I usually try to cobble together educational experiences through various means like this. I used the library LinkedIn access a ton to make sure that I had the latest and greatest information about the exam. So finally, I want to thank you all so much for listening to this quick little Career Corner talk. It's been a huge privilege to teach you all. We're getting down to the final weeks, and I wanted to wish you all the best with those final assignments. It's meant a lot to me to be able to teach these courses. You're all really, really talented. It's a huge privilege. It's intimidating how wonderful your backgrounds are. You're all incredibly accomplished. And this is just, again, an optional, additional perspective on those certifications that help to find jobs. And it really, really helped me. I can share with you that this certification was a really differentiating value. I'm being super stubborn. I want to stay in post-secondary. I really like teaching. But I do get a headhunter call, recruiter call at least once a week, sometimes more, asking about the PNP, giving me all kinds of weird and wonderful job opportunities, a lot of them in the US. I won't live in the US, so I always turn those down. I do like it here in Canada. I'm afraid of guns. So I tend to always turn those down, but it's a really, really hot certification. It remains so. It's been a really sustaining, attractive certification. I remember it was like the hotness back in 2012. You'll see it on lists of, key professional certifications to get even to this day. And it is a fairly straightforward process. And if you're ever interested in doing it, I have, again, all kinds of advice to give. I've given you some of my tips and tricks here. But if you do decide to do it, just reach out. I love talking about this. I love giving tips and advice and links. So please do keep in touch. As we end this course or winding down, I really do want to keep in touch with you, learn about your career success. If I can help or support in any way, I know how hard it is to find work. And that is something that is a personal passion of mine, is helping people find jobs whenever I possibly can. So I wish you all the best, and thanks for listening to this quick Career Corner, little experimental podcast. I'd love your perspective on how this works for you as a format. And I just thought I'd change things up this week to see what you thought. Okay, all the best. I hope you're having a great day.